Hello, you sentient ball of stardust. My name is Casey Davis. I'm a therapist and I'm an author of the book How to Keep House While Drowning, where I talk about ways to make it a little bit easier to take care of yourself when you're overwhelmed, stressed, have mental health issues, physical health issues, or maybe you're just in a hard season of life. Maybe you're looking for a place that you can come and listen to some practical advice. This is a podcast for all of the self-help rejects. We're going to talk about skills for survival and self-kindness. And I'm going to leave the pop psychology at the door. I promise not to tell you to meditate or to journal. We're just going to give you some really insightful conversations with hopefully some practical advice. So I don't believe you need to pick yourself up by the bootstraps. I don't want you to just try harder, and I don't believe that laziness exists. So join me over on Struggle Care, where we can find compassionate solutions that help us function a little bit better.
Salutations, my fellow food lovers. This is Chef Mark here from Johnny's Italian Steakhouse, and I want to tell you about our filet Oscar. This premium filet is topped with Johnny's lump crab cake, grilled asparagus, and our signature béarnaise sauce. But the start to any great night always begins with a killer appetizer. And I recommend trying out our jumbo pan-seared sea scallops with Brussels sprout slaw tossed in Johnny's hot bacon dressing. It is so good. I know that you will love my filet Oscar as much as I love preparing it. So come to Johnny's tonight. Johnny's Italian Steakhouse, Village Point Shopping Center, Omaha.
Stoveleg Media, igniting conversation.
Hey guys, how's it going? It is me, your girl, your host, Elena Grace, and you are listening to another episode of I've Been Thinking. Now today we have a special guest. We have Miss Courtney Hill.
Hello.
She has agreed to join us today. We're going to be talking about some really fun stuff, some stuff about her relationship, about her life, her journey to get where she is today. And I'm really excited to be able to share this with you guys, because I love Courtney. I love following her. I've been following you for a while, Courtney, on Instagram.
Thank you.
Not in real life, because that would be odd. I don't think I'd admit that if I was. But I've been following you on Instagram for a while. I found you through Indie Blue, of course.
Okay, yes.
And because she's one of your really good friends. And she just has great energy. And she had shared about you a few times. And I was like, I really dig this girl a lot.
Well, thank you.
You're so welcome. So introduce yourself to us. Tell us who you are.
Yeah, I'm Courtney. I'm from Utah. I'm 24. Introductions are the worst because
I know they're hard.
Don't ever even know what to say. I do a lot. I love the outdoors, love clothes, love shopping, love my cat, total cat person, grew up dancing. I love dancing. I recently have got into roller skating. I love to crochet, which is a new thing I started doing. So I just kind of like to stay busy, and I have a lot of hobbies and a lot of interests. And yeah, I also nanny, love kids. So yeah, I kind of do a little bit of everything.
I love that about you, though. You're very multifaceted, and you have a lot of creative energy.
Yeah, well, thank you.
You're welcome. I just am just really good energy around you. Like I said, I love following you. You're very empowering. Any girls or anybody really, but girls specifically, like if you are interested in following somebody who is empowering and kind of inspirational, Courtney is a really good one.
Well, thank you. That always makes me feel good to hear. I try to put out good energy, and so that means a lot.
I think you succeed.
Well,
thank you. You're welcome. So I want to talk to you today about something. It's kind of a little different from a lot of the topics I've been doing lately, but that is one of the reasons why I wanted to get you on here.
Yeah.
I want to talk to you about your relationship and your age gap in your relationship.
Yes,
Because that is like, it is still something that I feel is so taboo.
for sure.
And I don't get why. Like,
Yeah.
because you have a really beautiful relationship, and to see that, and then to see people's, I guess, stereotypes of it,
Mm-hmm.
it's not cool. So tell us about you and Jonas.
Yes. So I am 24. My boyfriend is 43. We started dating when he was 41 and I was 22. So we've got a good 19 years there. And I think at the beginning of it, neither of us really expected anything to come of it. I mean, I remember first going out and thinking like, "Oh, he's so handsome," but I expected our date to just be like a funny story I could tell people. Like, yeah, one
Right.
time I went out with this, 41-year-old or whatever, and I didn't really think he would want to keep seeing me just because I'm like, what would he want to do with like a 22-year-old? But I don't know. We just went to dinner that first date, spent 2 hours just talking, and I kind of still just thought that would be that. But I don't know. He kept asking me out, and I didn't really expect that. But we definitely had a very like unique but real connection. And that was pretty scary at first because I was like, what's happening? Wait, I actually like this guy. I don't think either of us expected that first date to go as it did, but here we are almost 2 years later.
I love that. I really love that story. And and I relate to it, I think, because well, I'll say this. I went through a big like 2 or 3 years of just like dating around, like
Mm-hmm.
not settling down, not like sticking with one person for very long, that kind of thing, because it just was
Yeah,
never right. And I think that you find the person for you when you're not looking.
for sure.
I think that that is when you find your person, is when you're not looking for them. And it sounds like that's exactly what happened to you. I know that's exactly what happened to me. I was
Yeah,
absolutely not looking for
yeah.
anybody, and I found Adam, and now I am like, well, shit, this is it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
um, I just think, I also think that you find the person that's right for you a lot of the time in unexpected places.
for sure. I would agree with that.
Yeah, it's really beautiful how your story worked out. I
Yeah,
would,
it is. Oh,
sorry, go
sorry, go
ahead.
ahead.
No, you go.
Oh, just saying, yeah, I think it's been pretty apparent to our family and friends too how we are,
Mhm.
really good for each other. We bring a lot to each other that one another needs. But it is interesting because yeah, I don't think at first any of our family or friends really expected that from us either. Like they were all probably kind of, yeah, what's going on? Like because there is a pretty big age gap. But yeah, I do think we just kind of attract what we are, and I don't know what aligns with us and what we need.
Yeah, for sure. And on that note of attraction, I would love for you to tell my listeners, because well, I'm sure that not all of my listeners follow you. I would love for you to share your story about how you manifested Jonas, because it's so crazy to watch on your stories, like you having these realizations. Like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
Yeah, so I mean, I have always been a big daydreamer. I love to daydream. I remember in dance class when we would sit in like the wall splits, I would sit and like daydream about my mom coming to pick me up and being like, "Hey, surprise, we're gonna go get a puppy tonight." Like, I just have always been a daydreamer. And so one of my frequent like daydreams is about like my future person, and being in love and being in a happy, healthy relationship. And I met with a tarot card reader a few months ago, and she told me like, "Oh, you manifested Jonas. Like the reason you're with him is because you manifested him. Like you've been manifesting him for years." And she had also said a different session at one point. She was like, "I get the sense that you two have loved each other in a life before this one. Like you guys have been best friends and your souls have loved each other before." And so when she first said that whole, thing about manifesting him, I was just thinking like, oh, I just manifested a good partner for me, a good, happy person. But then I kind of realized like, no, I think I actually manifested like him specifically. So I was obsessed, obsessed, obsessed with the Jonas Brothers. Like, so I don't know if there was a bigger fan, diehard Jonas Brothers fan. So I remember one time, my family was having early morning like Bible study or whatever, and I came across a verse where the word Jonas was in it, the name Jonas, and I underlined the entire verse and underlined the name Jonas like really boldly and heavily. And I actually remembered this after we had started like began dating and we had only been dating for a few months. I was like, oh my gosh, when I like underlined Jonas a million times in the Bible because that's his name. I was like, that's so funny. Um, but I have seen it just like all these little things add up, and it's kind of made me realize like, no, like I think like she said, how we, loved each other in a world before this one. I'm like, I've been searching for him and I've been like looking for him. And so it's funny to look back at my obsession with the Jonas Brothers and underlining the name Jonas and all that stuff. But then the other day too, I was in my childhood bedroom over at my parents' house and was like kind of cleaning out some stuff. And I found this ring, this wooden ring that I had got like custom engraved. I still remember the day I got it done. It was at the store in the mall. And it was like a tribute to the Jonas Brothers ring, but I had Jonas with a heart engraved into it. And it like kind of like made my heart stop for a second when I noticed that, because it's funny to me that I didn't get Joe engraved in it. I mean, Joe was always my favorite, or I
Mine
didn't
too.
get Jonas. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, oh
Didn't
yeah.
get Jonas Brothers or anything, just Jonas with the heart. And so yeah, it just kind of gave me chills realizing like, yeah, I think I've, been looking for him and waiting for him and putting energy out there to realign with him since I was, 10 years old.
That is so crazy.
Yeah.
That's like, I mean, it's really beautiful, like I said, and it's
Yeah.
crazy how you look back with hindsight and you realize that you've been searching for literally specifically him all this
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. And I think that's probably why we get along so well. I mean, like I have people that are like, is it weird dating someone that's like, that much older? Like they just can't imagine like hanging out at night with a 43-year-old. And I'm like, no, it just feels like as if it was any other boyfriend. Like we really are best friends. And him and I talk about that all the time. We're best friends. Like there's no one else that I get along with better, have a funner time with, would rather hang out with. Like, I just want to be with you. And so it is kind of funny that this 23-year-old girl and this, or 24-year-old, I turned 24, I'm now 24, and 43-year-old can just like get along so well. I think even romantic aside, just from the friendship perspective,
Right.
like he's just the best friend I've ever had, even compared to all my best friends throughout life that are girls my age. Like there's just no one I've had a better friendship than with him.
Wow.
All romantic stuff aside.
Yeah, that's really special.
Yeah, and it definitely really started out that way too. I mean, I think
I was gonna
because
ask that.
yeah, I mean, we definitely like when we first met, it was a date. It was, kind of like obviously interested in each other that way, but I think especially probably because of the age gap, he wanted to be extra respectful and make sure I was always comfortable and
Mm-hmm.
didn't. So I mean, he definitely took longer than any other guy I've dated to like pull moves or anything, which
Yeah.
actually stood out to me a lot as well, just because I've, most guys in this day and age, I feel like aren't very respectful and they're kind of
Mm-hmm.
in it for one thing and one thing only, and that's been something that's always really hard for me. I like want a real connection, not just someone that wants to hook up on a first date.
Yeah.
And so he was the one of the only guys I've ever gone out with that first really took his time to get to know me. And I think that stood out in and of itself.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's really, I mean, yeah, I think that's, of course, that's really important. And it's really precious that he took his time like that. But also, I do
Hmm.
think it's very important that he was an older man and he knew that that could be perceived differently if he did try to put the moves on you quickly.
Yeah, for sure. And I do think that's probably a common misconception with the age gap is like, oh, he's just like some creep, like,
Right.
you know, um, and I mean, like I said, of all the guys I've ever dated, he's by far the most respectful and most gentle and just loving in that way. And so I do think for a lot of people, it's confusing. It's like, why, like, what? They don't really get it unless it's like the older guys being creepy. But
Yeah. Or
I don't
like
know. It's
if you're
just
benefiting from like a sugar daddy or something.
exactly. I had someone ask me that once too. They're like, "How did your relationship start?" I'm just curious. Like, was it like a sugar daddy situation? I'm like, no, not at all. Um, yeah, it really is just as if I was dating someone my own age. But I also don't think like I don't know, and maybe it is just that kind of like soul connection him and I have because I do look at most other girls my age. My friends will talk about their relationship or fights or drama or whatever, and I'm like, yeah, I don't think he could date any other 24-year-olds. Like I don't think it would be a good connection with anyone else my age, but also like I never really connected with a lot of guys my age.
Yeah.
I do just think I don't know. It's definitely a better fit for me. And I think if things didn't work out someday, I would have to keep dating older just because I don't know. I don't think I could ever go back to dating guys my age, but um I think I had a hard time kind of connecting with guys my age a lot too, just because I do think I mean, I've done a lot of therapy. I've been to a lot of therapy, starting as a teen, and I just think after that it's kind of hard to like connect with some really emotionally immature guy
Mm-hmm.
that just doesn't really see the world the same way that you do.
For sure. And that's something that you and I had talked about a little bit leading up to this recording of this episode is how you think that your mental health journey has put you in a place like you're going to therapy, you're, understanding yourself, all of those things have put
Uh-huh.
you in a place where you're mature enough to date a guy who is older than you, has had all these other life experiences that arguably make him, or should, I guess, make him more mature, if we're going on
Yeah.
a scale of how we think things should be. Um,
Yes.
but yeah, I think that's a really important point to make.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. It's I think too, another aspect of like why it kind of works for us is I think both of us have always been kind of taken advantage of in the senses we're both really kind.
Yeah.
We both have some people pleasing tendencies. We both really just like want to take care of those we love and do good to those we love. But I don't think with anyone either of us have ever dated, it's been reciprocated. It's kind of been taken advantage of. And so I think finding this connection where we both have this deep desire to just like serve and give and take care. It's like a constant pouring into one another's cups. But I think in a lot of relationships, it's hard to find a balance where I think one person does tend to be more service oriented than the other. And obviously, when it gets out of balance, it's usually not a good thing, you know?
Yeah, that can be really
So,
frustrating or
yeah,
worse.
yeah. So I think it too is just like we finally both kind of feel like we are getting what we deserve in a relationship.
Yeah. Well, that's really special. I'm happy for you.
Well, thank you. Yeah,
You're so
it is
welcome
really
for both
great.
of you.
Well, thank you.
I wonder what do you have like advice that you would give to a girl or like maybe a young guy who is like maybe like thinking about somebody that's dating somebody that's older than them, if I could get my words out, or like something that was important to you as you went into that relationship, because I think that I mean, obviously, like we've said, you have an entirely different relationship than what people assume it is.
Yeah.
But there are those instances where the older person can be a creep and can be trying to take advantage. So, like, what was a way that you made sure that wasn't you and that wasn't Jonas?
Yeah, I do feel like it can be a hard like thing to figure out
Mm-hmm.
because I mean I've dated guys my own age before that definitely didn't have good intentions and I didn't
Oh,
see
for
that. I was
sure.
very like blind. I think he made it very clear like how respectful he was and how comfortable he wanted me to always be and stuff. And so I think it was just different where it's like it doesn't even have to cross my mind because it's like, oh, I have solid proof right here that he's a very kind guy. I do think it is kind of like an intuition thing
Yeah.
as well. Um, but with dating older, I have got questions before where people are like, I don't know what to do. I am starting to kind of see this older guy and I think I like him, but I don't know like how to act or, kind of questions like that. Like how do I keep his interest in me or how do I like act around an older guy? Like I don't even know. And my advice for that is for sure like just be yourself. Like
Yeah.
if it's not going to work if you're trying to be someone you're not. And I actually think that was kind of a pro to like his and I situation where I didn't really think it was going to go anywhere and I didn't have expectations for it too. And so I didn't try to be something I wasn't. Whereas usually if you're going on a date with a guy that it's like, oh, I really want to date him. I really hope something comes of this. Like, yeah, you might not even intentionally, but you might be acting
Differently.
different than who you really are because you're trying to impress him or something, But
Oh,
so I
yeah.
think it was easier to just be myself and, just kind of like it is what it is. You see what you get. Um, because I didn't have expectations of it, but also if he was trying to be different than he was to get along with me, or if I was trying to be different than I was to get along with him, it definitely wouldn't have ever worked or gone anywhere. We like each other for who we are, even though
Mm-hmm.
there is a big generational difference. And it's funny that we work so well because we really couldn't be more opposite in most ways. They say like opposites attract. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, I guess I'm seeing firsthand that's a very real thing. Not to say if you're super similar with your partner, it's not gonna work. I think it can work either way. But yeah, I don't know. It's funny how different we are in most ways. Yet we get along so well and we don't feel like we have to change our differences. We embrace them and they are what they are and we love each other for them. But yeah. So I mean, I think overall advice for someone that's maybe like entering an age gap relationship is just yeah, really be yourself, which I know is so cliche and maybe easier said than done, but something to at least be mindful of and practice. But also, yeah, really follow your intuition. I would also listen to friends if they do have concerns, but at the same time, you know your relationship better than anyone else. I did though get a lot of validation from even like my family when
Mm-hmm.
upon meeting him, because they could all see right away, like, and just get, his energy, like, oh yeah,
Right.
this is a really good guy. Like, and I do know my family was obviously a little bit worried at first.
Yeah.
But my mom says even when I sent her a picture of him at first, she was like, all my anxieties like instantly went away, because I was just like, oh, he looks like a really, like, really nice guy. Like,
Oh.
and so, I mean, I would say also listen to others, but um, I know in some situations it is different where maybe you're more in tune and they're not, but I would at least, if there is a lot of concern from family and friends, I do not write it off.
Right.
Um, yeah, really, really tune in with, if you're like, well, they're wrong about him. Okay, well, where's that coming from? How do I know they're wrong about him? Really, like, check in with yourself
Yeah.
before you're defensive, and really, really intentionally think about your side and their side, and maybe try to get some clarity on where each of your viewpoints are coming from.
I love that. That's really important advice, I think, for any relationship. And
Yeah.
that like what you said made me think though, I kind of like you have changed my perspective a little bit on this, even just in this conversation. Oh God. Because I mean, I was thinking about age gap relationships as like a kind of different kind of thing.
Yeah,
But they're just like any other relationship.
for sure.
And I kind of feel bad now that I was thinking about it like that, because I don't know, I guess that's just how we're made to think about them. But I
Uh-huh.
really do feel bad that I was thinking about it as like a different kind of relationship. Um but you've made me realize clearly that something that I already knew, but I was just like not practicing, I guess, that first of all, it is just any other relationship.
Yeah.
But it's just like, I don't know. I guess why do we think about it so differently? Like, I don't
It
get that.
I know it is interesting, because I feel like even firsthand being in an age gap relationship, I feel like I still sometimes have a tendency to maybe see other age gap couples and also kind of like not jump to conclusions, but start like getting curious or wondering like what their dynamic is and stuff. And it's funny because it's
Right.
like I know firsthand that it's no different, and maybe for some people it is, but I think typically overall it isn't.
Yeah.
So it is interesting that, yeah, it's like what kind of conditioning has been done that's like caused us to think it's something so different, when in reality it's just two people who have a connection and love each other.
Yeah. It's like internalized misogyny, but different. Or
Yes,
maybe a little bit of
totally.
internalized misogyny sprinkled in there.
Yeah, for sure.
But like I also have to wonder when it began too, like when that kind of mindset towards it began, because I mean in the 1800s, in the early
Yeah.
1900s, it like everybody had an age gap relationship. Like
Yeah.
it's not atypical historically. Not everybody, but a lot of people. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? Yeah, it's
for sure.
historically it's not atypical. So I wonder when that kind of stereotype and the like conditioning against it began.
Yeah, it is interesting. Interesting to think about.
Yeah, I'll have to try to like figure that out. If I
Yeah,
find
start
anything,
doing
I'll
some
let
like
you know.
research. Yeah,
Yeah.
I know. I'm gonna have to like read into that too, because it would be interesting, like, articles to read if I could find anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, well, I wanted to ask you too before, like, as we start to kind of finish up, I wanted to ask you how because you brought this up a little bit, how does the generation gap affect your relationship at all? Like your friendship, your relationship with each other's families, like any of that. Is there an effect on that, or have you all just like overcome it? It doesn't matter at all.
Yeah, it honestly doesn't.
Yeah.
It's not even something it was like that had to be overcome. It's just been pretty natural, honestly. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, so he actually works, he's technically like their boss, but he works with them, and they're a bunch of guys that are like my age. And so he's pretty like used to, I don't know, hanging out with people this age. He gets along with anyone. Like
Yeah.
his pocket of friends is like the most diverse group of people you would ever see. Like, so I mean, I think he already is used to getting along with, I don't know, maybe people this age a little bit.
Well, and
But
he's
it's
at
kind
a
of,
good age too, where it's like easy to. I'm sorry I interrupted you, but
oh no, you're
it's
good.
easy to kind of overcome that and hang out with people who are younger than you or a little bit older than you.
Yeah. And I mean, yeah, I think we're both probably just kind of easy to get along with. It's kind of is nice though when it's like those guys that he works with just love him. He is kind of like a father figure to them, but at the same time, like a really good friend. And so they'll invite him to things and parties and
Like a
stuff.
big
And so
brother.
yeah, and so we'll go and hang out with his guys and their wives or girlfriends, and it's kind of cool because it's like, oh, it's people my age. But then too, when he's hanging out with my family, it's like he gets along really well with my older brother, who is also a dad and works in construction, and they have a lot in common, and he'll
Mm-hmm.
sit and talk to my dad about history podcasts and
Oh,
stuff they're both
cute.
into. And so it's kind of interesting that yeah, he actually probably gets along better with my older siblings and parents than if I was dating someone my age, because
Yeah.
he actually relates to them a lot. And um his family's so awesome, and it's just loving and accepting. I remember him telling me at one point, it was probably like last summer, so we hadn't been dating a whole year yet, and his mom was like, I guess told him like, I was a little bit skeptical at first because she's so young. She was like, but I think she's really good for you. Like, I can tell she does a lot for you and your energy and just well-being. Like, I can tell she's good for you. And so, I mean, yeah, his family, it almost felt like he has five brothers. It almost felt like they didn't even really like blink an eye at it. They were just like
Yeah.
very loving and accepting from the get-go, and um haven't ever felt or seen judgmental about it. So I think we're really fortunate in the sense that it never really felt like an obstacle to be overcome. And also because he's used to hanging out with all those rowdy guys that work with him, upon meeting my friends, he also wasn't like, this is weird. Like, I don't like this. He just, yeah, sees
Just
them
rolled with
for,
it.
yeah, just has fun. And so, but I do think it's fortunate. I do get a lot of people kind of like that'll DM me and ask me for advice and stuff. And I think it flowed really naturally and easy for us and our families and friends and our people. And I know that's not always the case. So,
Well, that's
yeah.
incredible, though. I'm really glad that it did flow so easily for you. And
Yeah.
I'm glad that you all are setting an example that
Yeah.
it is just any other relationship. And I think for my listeners, like what I want them to take away from this episode, I almost said relationship again. I'm not here
I love it.
anymore. I
Relationship on the mind.
yeah, I'm just not in this anymore. I don't know what where my brain is. But I guess what I want everyone to take away from this is that it like I feel like we're talking about like same-sex relationships in 2002. Like that's the
Yeah,
stigma that I feel like is put around this still, and it's just
totally.
completely unnecessary.
Yeah.
And I still, like I said, I still had a little bit of that conditioning, and I was
Yeah.
coming to you, like from that perspective a little bit. And I want people to see that it's not this weird thing. It's not like something that we have to whisper about or like talk behind the menu. It's
Yeah.
just any other frickin' relationship.
Yeah, and it is funny hearing you say that too, because I mean, yeah, if we go out in public, like we'll even laugh about it sometimes. We'll be like, "Hey, like what are people gonna think today? Like, am I your girlfriend or your daughter?" Like we just kind of laugh about it. But I
Yeah.
mean, literally from our like first date, like you could see people like, and it tend to be kind of older people, which is funny, but kind of like glancing over, and you could tell just trying to like figure out what was
Mm-hmm.
going on, but almost with like concern and like, judgment, really.
Yeah.
Another thing that's funny though that I've realized is it seemed like my girlfriends my age are the ones that were more like, yeah, Court, like that's awesome, like good for you. And it seems like the guys my age were more like, that's really weird. Like, what on earth? Like, that dude's like 40, like that's just weird. But then on his side of things, it was like reversed. It seems like it was more like the guys his age that were just kind of like, yeah, cool, bro. Like, good for
Sounds
you. Like,
good.
glad you're happy. And then the women his age that were more like, how old is she? Like, that's weird. So, kind of interesting
Yeah,
how it
that's
was
really
like,
interesting.
yeah, the guys my age were judgmental, the girls were cool with it. Guys his age were cool with it. The women his age were judgmental. So,
Do you think you know why that is? Like, do you have any idea?
I almost, I mean, I almost would say it's almost like an inferior thing. Like,
I was kind of thinking that too.
yeah. And I remember the first time I posted a picture with him, a guy about my age commented. I don't even know who this kid was, but was like, is that dude like 40? And I knew I was obviously going to get some of that. So I just kind of like clapped back and was like, yeah, are you
Yeah.
jealous he can get a 22-year-old and you can't? And he like immediately deleted his comment. So I do just kind of think it's like a little bit of a jealousy thing. Like,
That's
you know,
exactly the word that came to my mind when you started
yeah.
talking about it is jealousy and inferiority. Like,
And
yeah.
I
Sorry.
do think it's kind of, oh no, sorry, that was me cutting you off.
No, you're fine.
Um, I mean it's kind of valid. Like you can't really blame them. Like, yeah, if a 20-year-old guy sees this like young girl his age is dating this like handsome older man who's like really talented and a handyman and like owns a house and has got his life together and his career, like obviously like you're probably going to feel a little bit of like insecurity
Yeah.
because you're still 20 and trying to figure things out. And then vice versa, a woman sees a guy her age dating this young girl who's, I mean, it's sad that society thinks growing older is not a good thing. I think
Mm-hmm.
aging is beautiful, but a lot of women that have aged a little bit probably do feel a little bit insecure about it. And so then they see some young girl and maybe feel a little bit jealous that some guy their age is going for that. But yeah,
Yeah.
so it's interesting.
It's
I
really
do,
interesting.
yeah, I do think, like I said, I mean, it's a little bit valid. I can see the viewpoint from both sides for sure. I get
Yeah,
it.
it makes sense like when you take the context into consideration, I think. Like
Uh-huh.
you said, like society tells us we should have our lives together at 18 years old, pretty much. And so when you
Yeah.
see somebody who's got their life together, you feel inferior. Society tells us that we shouldn't age. So when a 40-year-old woman feels like she's aged and she sees somebody her age with a beautiful fit woman, she's going to be jealous. So like yeah, it like
Yeah.
all the context, all the society, it totally makes sense. But it is sad that we're
It
conditioned to that
is.
too.
And I do think, I mean, that's good opportunity to for maybe anyone listening to this that can see that in themselves, kind of like yeah, reality check. Like, no, like aging is a beautiful thing. I think it's just some reframing that needs to be done because society has conditioned us to believe it's like a bad thing, but it's like picture all the wisdom that comes with it, and that's
Mm-hmm.
what I see. That's what I view it as is just. But then also on the flip side, it's like no, you don't have to have your life together at 20, and it's not normal to have your life together at 20, and you're still deserving of love, even if you're in debt when you first get married, because you probably will be. Like, that's very
Yeah.
normal, and that's okay.
Yeah. I think, yeah, I think that's a really awesome kind of note to wind down on is that we
Yeah.
should reframe these ideas and maybe we should think about how the people who came before us approach those things because well we're not
Mm-hmm.
going to even not even thinking maybe about like having your life together because like people in the I don't even know when were pregnant when they were like 16. So maybe not
Yeah.
on that note. But in terms of aging, um, we, we revered people who aged and they were seen as beautiful and they were seen as special and wise and
Yeah.
worthy of reverence. And so I think
Yeah.
that's really important. And then now, with new modern ideas, we're learning that we don't have to have our lives together when we're 18. We have a whole life ahead of us. It's not like we're all going to die at 45,
Yeah.
and we don't have to have our life ahead of us, and we have all this opportunity to live. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
For sure.
Wow. What a beautiful summation I think that all of this has
Yeah.
brought us to.
Yeah. And I think with that too, just yeah, embrace wherever you are in life and really embody where you are in life. And I think with that, like your person, like we kind of said at the beginning, will find you, you'll find them, but probably when you're least expecting it and probably in the most unexpected way and place and time. Um,
Absolutely.
but it probably won't happen. No, it for sure won't happen until you're secure in where you are
And who
in your
you
life.
are.
For
Yep.
sure.
Absolutely, sister. Well, thank you so much for coming on. Do you have any
Yeah.
resources that you would like to leave the listener with before you go?
Ooh, that's a good question. Resources is in
Like books, podcasts, something, a TV show that
just
helped you. Any,
okay.
yeah.
Um yeah, when you say book, automatically you've probably even had people recommend this before because it's a big one right now. It's booming, but Untamed,
I
Glennon Doyle.
I don't remember if I might have had one
Okay.
person recommend that before, maybe. I have heard of
I
it, but I've not read it yet.
It is the most beautiful, beautiful, beautiful book. I like underlining in my books and highlighting and writing in the margins.
I do too.
So it was one I bought a physical copy of, and I just barely also re-download, like got it on Audible as well. Because I'm like, oh, I'm gonna listen to this. And I'm not the kind of person that can typically reread books, but I know I will reread that again and again and again. I only finished it a
Yeah.
few months ago and I'm like already ready to read it again. It's a beautiful book about just, uh, uncaging yourself and being all you. And yeah, it's like my number one forever will be like top of my recommendation list. But I also just barely finished a book, How to Do the Work by Dr. Nicole Lepra, I believe is how you say it. Lepra? I'm not sure. Um, she's on Instagram as the holistic psychologist. Her book was phenomenal. Her whole Instagram page is phenomenal. Another highly, highly recommended book.
Awesome. I'll link both
Yeah,
of those in the blog post for today's episode so
perfect.
everyone can
Okay.
find those. And then tell us where we can find you, where we can follow you at.
Yes. So I am on Instagram at Courtney Hill with two C's. So it's a C and then Courtney Hill. And then I also have a cute little shop that I do on the side, which is really fun for me. So if you guys want to go follow along there as well, that is the Baby Pink Shop. That's the username on Instagram. So
It's really cute. All her stuff is really good.
thank you. Yeah, it's fun for me. So
Yeah, it looks like a lot of fun.
yeah.
And guys, for anyone who's new here, make sure that you go follow along on our Instagram at I've Been Thinking Pod. That way you get updates for everything and anything that's going on. Check out the website I'vebeenthinkingpod.com for that blog post on today's episode where those books and all of Courtney's Instagram and all of that, and just like notes from today's episode will be listed. Follow us on Patreon, subscribe there for extra content, and follow, subscribe, whatever it is, wherever it is you listen. That way you get notifications when you get new episodes. Courtney, again, thank you so much for coming on.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
You're so welcome anytime. And yeah, thank you guys for listening. And I'll talk at y'all next week. Bye. Love you.
Hello, you sentient ball of stardust. My name is Casey Davis. I'm a therapist and I'm an author of the book How to Keep House While Drowning, where I talk about ways to make it a little bit easier to take care of yourself when you're overwhelmed, stressed, have mental health issues, physical health issues, or maybe you're just in a hard season of life. Maybe you're looking for a place that you can come and listen to some practical advice. This is a podcast for all of the self-help rejects. We're going to talk about skills for survival and self-kindness. And I'm going to leave the pop psychology at the door. I promise not to tell you to meditate or to journal. We're just going to give you some really insightful conversations with hopefully some practical advice. So I don't believe you need to pick yourself up by the bootstraps. I don't want you to just try harder, and I don't believe that laziness exists. So join me over on Struggle Care, where we can find compassionate solutions that help us function a little bit better.
The South Dakota Stories, Volume 5. She used to dread the winter, the cold, driving in the snow. But that was before she started spending it in the right place. Now, wandering the snow puts a smile on her face, and breathing in the landscapes warms her spirit more than any coat. Because if South Dakota taught her anything, it's that it's never too cold to have too much fun. There's so much South Dakota, so little time.